Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I was asked to speak to all of you briefly about Arabic studies. I know quite a bit of you have actually done some Arabic studies either through Ibrahim College or on your own. Can I see a show of hands of anybody that's done any level of Arabic studies? Brothers and sisters, so I know who I'm talking to. Okay, quite a few of you. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so I want to talk to you from 2 points of view. Just from the point of view of a teacher, and also from the point of view of a student. And I'd like to start with what I think is a pretty funny story. Last year, I had the opportunity to teach a short Arabic program in Texas, in one of the smaller masajid in Texas. And most of my audience was non-Arabs, but there were a few Arab children, Egyptian children, Moroccan children, in the class also. And some of their parents were in the class as well. And these children, of course, at home, they speak Arabic, or what they think at least is Arabic. Right? It's some form of Arabic that they speak at home. And I was teaching Nahu and Sarf and the kinds of things that you learn traditionally when studying classical curricula. And towards the end of the program, one of the fathers of these young Egyptian boys came up to me and he started speaking to me in Ammiya, in the dialectical form of Arabic, which is basically the equivalent of Punjabi if you speak Urdu. Okay, so he's speaking to me basically in Punjabi Arabic. And I can tell the Arabic is in there somewhere. So I'm responding to him as best I can. So I respond to him in formal Arabic. So after about 2 or 3 back and forth, he goes, "Int bitafham Arabi?" Which actually in that form means, "Hal anta tafhamu al-Arabiyyata?" It's the foreign language translated into Arabic now. Do you understand Arabic? And that conversation, and I told him, I'm the one speaking Arabic. You're not speaking Arabic, right? And at the end of that short course, that same parent came to me. Very interesting. He came up to me and he said, "Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi." And I'm bracing myself to get involved in the Punjabi Arabic again. But you know what he says? He says very slowly, he says, هذه أول مرة أتكلم بالفصحى. This is the first time I'm speaking in Fusha. I've been practicing for a while. I'm sharing this story with you for a reason. Muslims in the West, okay, I'll hold it closer. Any closer, I'll be chewing on it. So Muslims in the West, all of you, us Muslims in the United States, we have a unique opportunity to revive the language of Islam. We have a unique opportunity. The Arabic language is rapidly deteriorating in the Arab world, very, very quickly. And as a matter of fact, a huge number of the Arab community in the United States, the educated Arab community in the United States, one of its great failures is not being able to transmit the Arabic language to its next generation. They're not able to do it, and they're sad about it. They cry about it. In my full-time program, I have half of my students, almost half of them are from an Indo-Pak, background, and the other half are a mix of, African Americans and Arabs and a lot of Arabs are in my program. And they're being sent by their parents because they realized they weren't able to transmit the language over to their next generation. I have emails and I have letters with tears of fathers that when the program is over and the daughter goes back and the son goes back, they speak to their father in Arabic and they're like, "This reminds me of the language my father used to speak to me. This is the most beautiful thing that's happened to me." I'm sharing this with you for a reason. An institute, just like Ibrahim College, and those of you that are studying Arabic full-time or part-time, it doesn't matter. It's able to transmit concepts, difficult concepts of the Arabic language to you. Things that are very hard to understand on your own. The teacher's job is to make those concepts easy. But that just means you're beginning to understand the Arabic language. That does not mean al-Arabiyyatu tajri fi ad-dam. It doesn't mean Arabic is running in your blood yet. And you have to, as students of the Arabic language, you have to set your goals very, very high. Your aim should not just be to understand Nahu and understand Sarf and to do I'rab. Not just that, but your job needs to be to say, after this I will learn to navigate texts. And beyond that, I will learn to speak in the Arabic language formally. To the point where I want to have all of my conversations with my teachers in the Arabic language. And when they speak to me, I shouldn't even have to look up a dictionary. That is how good I want to become in my Arabic. Don't set goals lower than that. The first goal of studying the Arabic language for any Muslim is to understand the Quran. All of you know that already. I didn't teach you that, you knew that on your own. The reason you want to learn the Arabic language is to appreciate the beauty of Quran, especially in the Salah. To know what the Khatib is saying. To know what you yourself are reciting in the Ruku' and getting up from Ruku' and Qurud. What are you saying to Allah? What are you saying? What does every single word mean? And how do these words come together to form meaning? That's what you want to do. But it goes beyond that. I argue that it goes beyond that. I tell you, something happens when you begin to internalize the Arabic language. I, as a student of the Arabic language, when I first studied grammar, morphology, vocabulary, tafsir, when I studied these things, I could look at an ayah and do i'rab of it in front of my teacher, and my teacher would say, Sahih, it's correct. So I knew something about the ayah. But I tell you, it is only after I started speaking the Arabic language, and I started immersing myself in the Arabic language, you develop a new taste even for the Quran. You develop a new taste. Some of you have experienced this. Some of you learn a little bit of Arabic, you're standing in Salat, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and you're saying Jumla Ismiya. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Sifa Sifa. Maliki, hey, Mullah, Yawmiddin Mullah Fiday. Awesome. Iyaka na'budu mudari'. That's what's going on in your head. And that's okay. These are first steps. That's fine. It's better than you thinking about what's for dinner while Salat is going on. But as your development continues, as your work continues, your taste for the Quran will change. Your taste for Arabic will change. And this is really, wallahi, we have an opportunity to do this in the West. We have an opportunity to make the universal second language of the Muslims across ethnicities to be the Arabic language. It's a universal language we can share with each other. I recently traveled and I met with Haji Noor. Some of you might know who that is, a famous calligrapher. He's of Chinese origin, who studied Arabic. And he and I spoke in Arabic the entire time. And it was the most beautiful thing. How in the world am I going to have a meaningful conversation with someone who only speaks Chinese and Mandarin, and the only other language they speak is Arabic, and the only reason he learns Arabic, he says, إِنَّهَا لُغَةُ الْقُرْآنِ فَإِذَا عَرَفْتَ أَنْتَ الصِّينِيَّ لَنْ أُخَاطِبْكَ بِالصِّينِيَّ. He told me, even if you knew Chinese, I wouldn't talk to you in Chinese. Why would we need the language of the Prophet ﷺ? Why would we do that? SubhanAllah. That's the aspiration you're going to have. And these are my last comments now. To those of you that are aspiring to have Arabic as part of your life, inshallah, for the purpose of enhancing your deen, my invitation, my advice to all of you is a recognition. You have to recognize when you finish a program with teachers, the conceptual part, the part that you could not have done on your own is over. But the hard part is just beginning. The hard part is when you take those concepts and that understanding and transform it into a skill. Before this, 90% of the work was being done by your teacher. You just had to do the homework. You thought you were doing the hard work? You weren't. The teacher was doing the hard work. You weren't doing the hard work. But now that you're done, or you've made some progress, now your work begins. 90% of the heavy lifting will come from you now, and you will only go back to the teacher when you get stuck. Now is the time for you to get serious. And I warn all of you, especially those that graduated from the full-time program, part-time program, the students that did really well. Allah made the Arabic language easy for some people, and He made it a challenge for some people. He did. And when those of you that even despite your challenges, you finished and you accomplished, if you take one lazy move from now, you decide you're not going to continue, or you're going to take a little break, let me tell you, 1 week of no review is like 3 months in the hole. You're going to forget this stuff so fast. It leaves you so quickly. So you have to maintain. And you have to be honest to yourself, have a minimal, manageable schedule of review, but make sure you maintain it. Make sure you keep going back to it. And those of you that are studying the Arabic language and are not hufaz of the Quran, if you're not memorizing the Quran actively, just might as well not even learn Arabic. That's my honest advice to you after 13 years of teaching. As Muslims, if you're serious about learning the Arabic language, then you better be serious about memorizing Quran. 1 ayah a day, 2 ayat a day, 1 ayah a week, it doesn't matter. But you better be involved directly in memorization of Quran. It will necessarily improve your Arabic. It will necessarily make you a better and better student. Oh, I thought the guy was coming to tell me to get off. Okay, so the other thing, before I leave, I just have an observation I want to share with all of you. There were these kids that came up and recited. Do you realize how amazing they were? Or was it just me? Anybody feel like they were amazing? Yes or no? Yes? Were they amazing? Yes or no? Yes. I'll ask one last time just to see if you're alive. Were they amazing? Yes or no? Yes. How come I didn't hear that? Like one guy that goes, Takbir! And there's 2 people that said, Allah. What was that? Guys, you have to wake up a little. These kids, you know how hard it is to speak in front of all of you? These little kids, and they came and recited. I know there was a lot of acknowledgement, a lot of information was thrown your way, but man, these are opportunities for you to encourage the young. And you really have to go out of your way to encourage the young. You really, really have to do that. Those cute little girls came and sang the nasheed. One of them even lost her voice. She was so nervous. But that's not the time to laugh at them. You say, rock on, sister. That was awesome. Go, sisters, when you find those girls, go and congratulate them. When you find those kids, tell them you're proud of them. Because these are things we should celebrate. There is nothing wrong with you having a reaction. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you celebrating loudly. I know it's England and it's against your manners. But if this was Texas, let me tell you, I'll leave you with this. If this was Texas, and Brother Mushfiq was called to speak. Mushfiq, he's a good friend of mine. If this was Texas, the waswasa came to my mind as Brother Mushfiq was being called. I was going to say, yeah, Mushfiq! Go Mushfiq! And I was hoping some of you other people would have carried that lot, but you didn't. That's okay. That's alright. You'll learn eventually. We will take your civility out of you eventually. If more American speakers keep coming this way, inshallah, you'll become just as rowdy as we are eventually. So as I part with you, inshallah ta'ala, just parting advice for Arabic students, keep up with your studies, continue to memorize the Quran, take every opportunity you can to speak, make lots and lots and lots of mistakes. Don't be worried about making mistakes and being embarrassed, because until you embarrass yourself, you will not learn. You have to put your ego aside and learn. Let me tell you a funny story and I leave you with it. It put a real smile on my face. On our campus, when I teach Arabic and I teach students to speak also, there were 2 verbs I taught them. One verb was tusharik. Tusharik means to participate. And the other verb is tushrik, which is to do shirk. So tusharik means what again? Let me see if you're paying attention. To participate. And tushrik means to do shirk. You guys know what that is. It's pretty bad. So in one of the breaks, one of the students, he's playing table tennis. And he comes up to me and goes, Ya Ustadh, هل لك أن تشرك معي? Ustadh, you want to do shirk with me? He was supposed to say what? هل لك أن تشارك معي? He says, هل لك أن تشرك? Like, no, never. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. La. It's okay, it's just for 10 minutes, he says. But that's okay. Mistakes will happen. And they'll be funny. And you'll put yourself in embarrassing situations. But you know what? After I laugh at him, and he cries after that, he'll never forget those 2 verbs. Those 2 verbs. He may forget all of the Arabic language. 2 verbs he knows for sure. Ashirk wal musharaka. He knows those 2. Embarrass yourselves. Ask. Constantly ask. Put yourself in that position, and Allah Azza wa Jalla will open the doors to you. We say the student of knowledge should be humble, right? The most practical way to be humble is to constantly make mistakes, because mistakes put your pride down. It's too, you feel like if I answer this incorrectly, everybody's going to look at me. Everybody's going to think, I don't understand. So what? You're not there for anybody else. You're there for yourself. You're putting the time, the energy into learning something, then you better participate and be actively engaged. And now that some of you are on your own, and you're not with the institute, you've graduated already, now the onus is even more on you to be responsible with the amana that was given to you before it disappears, before it goes away. May Allah Azza wa Jalla put barakah in all of the learning that the institute has to offer, that Ibrahim College has to offer, in all of its wings, alhamdulillah, through Khalil Foundation. I'm very, very happy at the work that's going on here. I make lots and lots of dua for it. Inshallah ta'ala, maybe next time if I have the opportunity to come, I'll see a livelier crowd, especially when the children are performing. Especially then, inshallah ta'ala, encourage the kids as best you can. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully now we can have some dinner. And I want to present an award to all of you for sitting this long, inshallah. It's a virtual award, so just accept it. Barakallahu wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.